Julia Johnson has worked in a variety of repair shops. Currently, she is an automotive technology professor at Skyline College, where she teaches engine repair and rebuilding class, the entry-level technician class, and a weekend automotive classes for women. Please join me in welcoming Julia.
Hi, everyone. I would say, how are you today? But I don't think I can hear you. So we'll just move ahead. Should I start sharing my screen?
Yes,
Okay. Or should I introduce myself a little first?
either way.
Okay,
Maybe.
I'll do the me part first, then I'll do the screen. Okay, so as she mentioned, I'm a professor of automotive technology at Skyline College, and I also graduated from SF State with a degree in international relations. So I wasn't always a mechanic. In fact, if you'd asked me 20 years ago if I was going to be a mechanic, I would have thought you were crazy. Um, and I've done a lot of different things in my life. As mentioned, I have the degree in international technology. I worked for foreign governments. I was the administrator of trade for South Korea. I worked for other nonprofit organizations. I worked for legal aid associations, insurance companies. I was a personal trainer. I had my own dog walking business. I've done a lot of different things. Um, and I was a stay-at-home mom for a while. And when my youngest was old enough to start preschool, I got a one of those Skyline catalogs in the mail. And when I dropped it on the table, it opened to the automotive pages. And I saw that there were classes at Skyline. And I thought, I really would like to do something like that. I've always wanted to be knowledgeable under the hood. I always wanted to be able to do that. But when I was younger, women were not invited. And so I would try to learn on the driveway with my dad. And my dad was, let's say, not an educator. He was a good guy, but he was there to do a repair, not teach me all about cars. So he would start getting frustrated. And, I'm just standing there holding the flashlight and I wouldn't learn anything. And then he'd start getting mad and I'd be like, okay, I'm going in. And that was the end of my driveway experience. So I was really excited to find that there were classes. And based on my driveway experience, I thought that maybe cars were too difficult for me to understand. Um, but I signed up for a weekend class at Skyline. It was Auto 708, where you bring your own car and you've got a teacher and you've got the lifts and you've got, someone that can explain things in a way you can understand. And I discovered that when someone explained things to me in a way that I could understand, I understood it. And so I realized that working on cars is not that hard. You just have to, have a teacher who's willing to work with you and be willing to do the research and put the time in yourself. So that's how I got started in automotive. I took that weekend class a couple of times. I worked on my 1964 Ford Galaxy, and I have to say I was not a pro at the beginning. I don't have that natural mechanical ability. I, broke stuff. I broke bolts off. I tightened them backwards. I, stripped out my bleeder screw on my brakes and some other expensive, I put my shocks on upside down, other expensive and not expensive mistakes, but I learned that I can do it. If I can do it, anybody can do it. So I went on to the full-time program at Skyline and I got my certificate in the program completion certificate. There we go. I worked at several different repair shops. I worked at a high-end European shop. I worked for a rental car shop and an independent shop that did heavy-duty trucks. That was my first job. And then shortly after that, I got hired teaching part-time at Skyline and then full-time. And here I am now, 20 some years later, talking to you all. So I will share my screen now and tell you a little bit about what goes on in the automotive world. Hang on, it's not sharing. Do that one. Sorry, one moment, please. Okay, you can see this. Yes, I hope.
Yes, yes.
Okay, Delightful. Thank you for letting me know. I did like an hour's worth of lecture one time with the wrong screen up and nobody said anything. So I appreciate that. Okay, so the automotive industry. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about careers that are available to you. It's not just turning a wrench. There are a lot of opportunities with automotive knowledge, um, career opportunities in automotive industry, and then where to start. So let's begin there. And I am not advancing. There we go. So this is true of every person. At some point, you will need a job. And right now, you are at the point where you're trying to determine what kind of job you need. So um, well, the question is for you. Yeah, I mean, everybody starts at the bottom, but the question is, do you want to stay at the bottom or do you want to have opportunities to advance? And do you want to do work that you enjoy? So that would be delightful, I imagine, for most people. So how do you get into a career that gives you these opportunities? Well, education is the key. So the more schooling you have, the more opportunities you create for yourself. Um, and then the more opportunities you have, the better opportunities you have for good jobs. So jobs that are, not just part-time minimum wage sort of jobs, although there's nothing wrong with those, hopefully you can advance beyond that. So good jobs have benefits like healthcare, education plans, retirement opportunities, 401k to save your own money, pensions that will pay you after you've retired. And we all know that the cost of living in the Bay Area is pretty steep. So you're going to want a job that pays you pretty well. So fortunately, well, not so fortunately, not everybody knows what they want to do at this point in your life. So what you need to do is make sure that you have as many opportunities as you can get, as many doors open to you as possible. Then when you've figured out what you want to do, you can pick and choose from those available opportunities. So that's the idea. So in the automotive world, you would start at the entry level. I guess actually there's a level before entry level. There's like a mechanic's assistant level or you could be a porter if you work at a dealership. A porter is somebody that brings the cars from the parking lot to the shop and back. A mechanic's helper is somebody that helps the mechanics, brings the cars in and out, raises them up on the rack, helps them with various jobs that take two people, that sort of thing. So those are considered non-tech jobs. The technical jobs, the first job you're going to get is entry level, and those could be, it's typically called a lube tech, lubrication technician. So they're the people that do the what do you call it? Oil changes, obviously, tire rotations, safety inspections, putting tires on the rims, patching tires, a lot of tires, oil, battery sort of things. And then the other services that you'd need, like changing your coolant, flushing your transmission fluid, things like that. So that's the entry level. You could work at gas stations that have repair shops. You could work at a dealership at this level. You could work at repair shops, auto parts stores, any of those things would have an entry level opportunity. I don't have it on the slide here, but entry level wages are these days about probably 22 to $30 an hour, just starting out. And those are hourly wages. Um, your next level up would be if you're good at what you're doing in the repair or as a lube tech, then your boss may ask you to take more training to advance to the next level, which would be a line tech or a repair technician. So repair techs make about more than 30 an hour, 30 to 45 perhaps, but they're being paid flat rate, which is a different thing. I can explain that here in a minute. And they're doing the repairs. So somebody else diagnoses the problem and then says, this is the problem, now you go fix that. And then they do the repair. So they're going to be doing alignments. They're going to be replacing things like, replacing water pumps, doing timing belts, doing brake jobs, that sort of thing. And then the top of the heap at most shops would be the diagnostic technician. So they're the ones with the most experience, the most skill, the most time in the industry, and the most education. And they're the ones who figure out what the problem is. So there's usually only a few diagnostic technicians in a shop. And they're the smart ones. They're the ones you can say, hey, my car's doing this, and they can figure it out. And then once they figured out the problem, then they send it down to the repair techs for the repair, and like that. Um, After diagnostic technician, most people, that's as high as they want to go in repair. They want to stay working in the shop and they want to be doing the fun stuff, the diagnosis. You can specialize if there's something that interests you particularly, like you really want to work on hybrids or you want to work on electric vehicles or you really like doing front end suspension work or whatever that is. You can specialize on that. And then the better you are at the job, the more money that you'll make. There are also opportunities outside repair for use with your automotive knowledge. You could, for example, go to Skyline and get your associate's degree in automotive technology and then transfer to a four-year university. And there's all kinds of different majors and degrees that you could get that would go along with automotive knowledge. Like, for example, I'm sure you've seen the car shows on TV. There's millions of car shows on TVs. There's whole channels of car shows on TVs. If you got a journalism degree, for example, or a broadcast communications degree, and you combine that with your automotive knowledge, then you too could be working on a car show or working for a car magazine, writing for a magazine, that sort of thing. You could get an engineering degree and learn how to design cars, do mechanical engineering or automotive engineering, and move into that whole world of designing the cars instead of repairing the cars. You could be a teacher like me. You could get a teacher's credential. Um, there's really no limit. The only limit is your imagination. So automotive technology doesn't just have to be repair. It can be a lot of different things. So sometimes parents don't think that there's much of a future in automotive technology. There is, in fact, not just repair, not just all those other things, but the technology is expanding rapidly. So these days, working for electric vehicles manufacturers would be more like a computer job, working with your laptop to diagnose the vehicles, than it would be like a service job where you would change fluids and replace brake pads and that sort of thing. Oh, I mentioned this briefly, but I got this off the, what do you call that? Bureau of Labor, Department of Labor from the federal government. So these wages aren't exactly appropriate for our area. We make more money here in the Bay Area than is typical for the federal job sites. Um, so a supervisor would make more than $45 an hour at this point. In fact, some of our former students are making over $100,000 a year working on cars, doing actual repair, being the shop foreman, shop manager, that sort of thing. Machinists and other engine assemblers, they're making more in the 30, starting at $30 an hour. Same with machinists. So those are specialized jobs that you would pursue if you wanted to work in precision measurement and machining and repairing engines specifically. Auto body, that's a whole separate industry with a whole separate series of certifications. $35 an hour to start would probably be more appropriate. And then service technicians, that's the part I mentioned. You probably start around $25 an hour as a lube tech and then work your way up to possibly over $100,000 a year, provided that you're good at what you do. So where to begin? There are not too many high schools left that still have auto shop, but if you have that opportunity, and I know in San Francisco, it's the George Washington High has an automotive program, you could start there. You could also go to community colleges like Skyline, De Anza in, where is that? San Jose area, and then City College in San Francisco all have automotive technology associate's degrees and certificate programs. There's also private colleges or trade colleges that don't teach you everything that you would learn at a college. They only teach you that particular skill that you're there to study. So that would be like Universal Technical Institute, UTI, would be a private college. Um, the nice thing about high school auto shop is it's free, right? Because you have to go to school. Community colleges, I know at Skyline, depending on your income, it could also be free. So everybody gets free tuition. Depending on your income, you may get free books, not have to pay fees, get your tools purchased. That's one of the advantages at Skyline. We will buy your basic tool set. Um, and then if you go to those community colleges, you can get an associate's degree. At Skyline, if you take 3 of the full-time automotive classes and 1 semester of general education, you'll have your associate's degree. So within 2 years, you could have an associate's degree and then transfer to a 4-year college if you want to, or start working in the industry if you want to. For Skyline specifically, you need to meet our prerequisites before you can apply to the full-time program. So full-time program means you're in school for about half the day, 8 a.m. to about 1:30 for most of the classes. Um, those are 15-unit classes, so you'd be a full-time student if you took one automotive class. So to get into the automotive program, you have to apply and you have to have met the prerequisites. So taking auto shop in high school will meet the prerequisite. Or if you don't have shop at your school, you could take our prerequisite classes, Auto 710, which is the fundamentals of auto technology, or Auto 711, which is careers in automotive technology. And if you get I believe it's a C or better, actually, then you can apply to the full-time program. We also have night classes and afternoon classes that anybody can apply for or anybody can take those. You don't have to apply to the program to register for a night class or an afternoon class. At skylinecollege.edu, you can click on automotive programs, departments, and then automotive technology. That'll take you to the automotive departments page, obviously, and all the information about the classes we offer, the degrees we offer, certificates, application process, all of that's there. What else do we have here? Oh, that was the short version. So let me stop sharing. Okay. And if you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them.
Julia, I'm checking the Q&A. I don't see questions from the audience yet. Audience, if you have a question, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A box, and I'll read them aloud. Um, while we wait for questions from audience, I've prepared a few questions for you, Julia. Okay, so you you did tell us about, what you do, what you did before you joined the automotive industry. So, as one of the few women in a male-dominated field, how did you navigate your career?
How did I navigate?
Mm,
I I had a good experience at school. And there was a lot of people supporting me. I had teachers that were willing to mentor me. They, sent me on to a lot of different opportunities, which expanded, my whole automotive world. Um, so that went really well at school. And I have to say, my teachers were all awesome. Um, in the industry, I was surprised that people were welcoming to me, more so than I thought they would be. There were, of course, a few people that didn't understand why I wanted to work in the industry. It's like, oh, you're going to hurt your hands, or, this is a dirty job. Why are you doing this? And I'm like, well, why are you doing it? I'm here for the same reason you are. Um, and then, of course, there were people that were just not nice about it at all. And you're going to find that in any industry. So I just basically navigated by telling them, I don't have to prove myself to you or anybody. I'm here to do a job just like you are. This is information I want to know. I find this interesting. That's why I'm here.
thank you, Julia. I see some question from the audience. They put it in the chat. Okay, so first question, is there any way to get a certificate in automotive?
Absolutely. So I can only speak for Skyline because I don't work at the other colleges, but at Skyline, um, For every 15 unit class, every full-time class you take, you get a state certificate. So you get a certificate for each class. There's 6 semesters available. You don't have to take all 6 semesters. You can take as many or as few as you want. Um, you could just get your certificates in the subjects that you're interested in and go to work. You could get an associate's degree and go on to, university. You could get an associate's degree and work in the industry. You could do all of that, get all of the certificates and the associate's degree. It depends on what you want. You could also just take the prerequisite class, the entry level class, and start working. Most of what you're going to learn is going to be on the job. So education and experience are two different things. Education is important, but you have to have the experience to do well in the industry. So the sooner you start working, especially if you're in school, you get a job while you're still in school, work part-time, take your classes. That's going to be your best opportunity for learning what you need to know, getting your certificates, starting work, going on to a university, all that stuff.
Mm, okay. A question sent via chat.
Mhm.
Molly asked, do you need to be strong handling cars and the repair equipment? Is it a greasy and dirty job?
I'm glad you asked that. No, not anymore. When my dad worked in a shop, you had to be stronger, and it was working with fluids and that sort of thing. Um, these days, tool technology has come a long way, and you can see that I'm not exactly the strongest person you might encounter in a shop. So I've learned different ways to use tools, different tools that work better for me. There's, cars that are on the lift. I don't have to jack them up with a floor jack anymore. There's power tools, air tools. I don't have to, physically muscle fasteners off anymore. So no, anybody can work in this industry at this point.
Great. Good to hear. Okay, my son is interested in auto mechanics. Can you work your way into auto field just through job experience, or do you need to find all shops? Do you do you need to go to college to be a auto mechanic?
That's another excellent question. So, yes and no. You could just start working at a shop, and as mentioned, there's the on-the-job experience is where you get on-the-job experience. If you're working for a dealer and they think you're going to be a good technician that's going to stay with them for a while, they'll send you to their training. So, if you work for Toyota, for example, then they're going to send you to Toyota training, and you learn how to work on their cars and their technology, and you would advance that way through the dealership with their certificates and training. And then, of course, you can go to community college and learn it there. What was the last part of the question?
Oh, uh, do you find all shops require applicant to have a college experience?
Yeah, no, so not necessarily. Oh, that's what I was going to say. So I do recommend that students get the associate's degree. Like I mentioned, they can just get certificates if they want to, but if they get the associate degree, then they're going to have more options. And this is not a lifetime job. I'm at the far end of this job, and it gets harder the older you get. So you might want to have options for you at that point. And if you have been working full time for 40 years, going back to school is probably not, full time is not going to be an option. But if you have your degree, then you can have a whole lot more choices available to you at the later stages in your career or anytime really. Um, and then what was the other part of that question? Do they need
I
it?
think, yeah, I misread the first time, but
Oh,
he's
okay.
asking if all shops require
Ah,
college college education, I assume.
Okay, so yes, not necessarily college education, but the shops will require at some point, maybe not before you start working, but at some point, if you want to advance, you're going to need ASE certifications. And that's the Automotive Service Excellence Organization. It's a national testing agency for lots of different trades, not just automotive. They're separate than the school. Our schools have nothing to do with ASE. This is the national standard. So all automotive shops are going to require you to get ASE certifications at some point. You can start taking them at any time. If you're taking my entry level class, The first ASE certification is the G1. That's the maintenance level certification. You can take that test while you're still in school that first semester. And then for each subject we teach, there is an ASE certification. For some of our semesters, there's more than one certification. Like we have a brakes, steering, and suspension class, and there is a certification for brakes, one for steering, and one for suspension. So if you're taking those tests while you're still in school, you have a much better chance of passing them. And then when you start your first entry-level job, you can show your new boss or put it on your resume. I have all of these professional level certifications. So that's what they're looking for. An associate's degree, that's for you, for your future. Certificates, same thing. In the industry, of course, they'll love to see that you got a degree or that you have certificates, but it's the ASEs that are going to be required.
Mm, okay, got it. Um, Question from Joseph. I'm a student at City College of San Francisco, currently enrolled in the ASE Auto Body Collision Repair and Frame Strengthening Welding. I
Great.
am a leave of absence mechanical engineering student as well from Rochester Institute of Technology, New York. I
Well,
missed part of the presentation, but I'm interested in job search advice.
job
Job
search
search
advice.
advice.
Yeah. Your best bet would be, I don't know what City Colleges offers in the way of job placements or job assistance. But at Skyline, we do offer job placement assistance. We call it an internship, but it's not like a true internship. In other industries where you work for free, basically, you work for the experience. Um, our internships are basically part-time jobs that you're getting the experience while you're working, but you also get paid. I would never send one of our students to go work for free in a shop, and most repair shops wouldn't have you work for free anyway. So your best choice, start with your school. Um, uh, Dealerships use the online resources like Indeed and Glassdoor fairly well. Government jobs, you'll definitely find those on the online job sites. But the smaller ones, like the independent shops, they're probably not. Well, I can't say they're probably not. They may or may not be advertising there, but start with your teachers. They are getting requests for technicians all the time. I have a list of about 300 shops that I work with every semester, and we put on a hiring day where we bring the employers up to campus, and you do a little sort of speed dating sort of thing where you try to do short interviews with as many of the employers as you can, give them their resumes, and then pretty much all students get multiple job offers from that event. So if they don't offer something like that at City College, you should suggest it and maybe even help them put it together. That would be a great way to bring employers to the students and vice versa.
Okay. Joseph has another question, but I see two other people put their question in the chat. So I'm going to read the next question from the chat. I have a diploma in electrical engineering from Nepal, which is a 3 years course after grade 10. Can I join this certificate? I think he meant the certificate in automotive.
You can certainly take, anybody could take the prerequisite class. Electrical engineering would not meet the prerequisite for our full-time program. So you'd still take the prerequisite class and apply to the full-time program. But yes, we'd be happy to have you.
Okay. Question from Molly. Can you walk us through a day on the job training?
A day on the job if you were working or a day at school.
Molly, a day at school or at work?
I
That
could do both.
may, yeah, why don't you do both?
Okay. So if you are working in
Oh,
the
she said
industry,
on the job.
on the job. Okay, I'll
Yeah.
start with that one. Your day would start probably around 8 o'clock in the morning. You might get there a little bit early just to get yourself set up and ready. Most of the customers are coming in the morning to drop off their cars. Um, the service advisor is the person who works with the customers and the technicians. So they're going to be getting the information from the customer. What's the problem? You know, when does this happen? When do you notice it? That sort of thing. Uh, Put all the information into the computer and then take the keys car goes out in the parking lot, you, the technician, will pick a work order. So you're looking on your computer and it says, rotate tires on a '04 Honda Acura, something like that. So you would click on that work order. Your time starts when you select the work order. Then you would get the keys, go get the car, or the porter would bring you the car, and you do the work. When you're done with the work, you type in what you did. You have to be very specific about what you did, what the repair was, what parts you used, what recommendations you need to make, that sort of thing. And then close out the ticket, which means that you are basically punching out on that job. Then the computer will record the time it took you to do that job. There are industry time limits for the jobs. You can't, take a 4 hour oil change, for example. You have to be able to do an oil change, tire rotation, and safety inspection in 30 minutes. And every other repair has time limits set as well. So when you're punching in and out on those jobs, then you are telling the computer how long you took, and then your employee reviews are going to be based on how well you meet book time, how many comebacks you have. A comeback means you didn't do it right and the customer brought their car back, or how few comebacks, I suppose, and quality of work, basically. So that's what you're doing all day. You to pick the jobs, you punch in, do the repair, punch out, put the car back in the lot, repeat. In the afternoon, that's mostly when customers are coming to pick up their cars. You may be tasked with picking up or dropping off a car. You may be picking up or dropping off a customer. Your shop may not provide that service. You may never leave the shop. You may never speak to customers, or you may be talking to the customer yourself, describing what you found and what repairs they need. The service writer is usually the one to get the approval. So you're the one that's doing the inspection, figuring out what the problem is. You tell the service writer, they tell the customer, and then the customer says yes or no. Go ahead and do that repair, or don't do that. I'm coming to get my car. Um, and then at the end of the day, you clean up your tools, you put them away, and you go home ready to start it again the next day. Uh,
Thank, thank you
yeah, it
so much,
depends on the
Joseph.
kind of shop that you work at. That's just general repair.
Mm, okay, got it. Okay, another question from Joseph. He's the one who is a student at State College, taking the ASE auto body collision repair class. So his question is, okay, it's very long. In addition, I have started to work on a startup 401(c)(3) project for the benefit of young women in New York State, and have a question regarding your outreach or advice. I'm playing a supportive role only for resources and information, as well as startup applications with our three board uh, of directors required for the 501(c)(3) funding. We
Mhm.
are now two women and one male. How can we reach out to you for automotive training supportive roles or collegiate reference poverty line for low income women?
I can help you with designing a recruiting and retention program. I've done that for Skyline. I can help you with grant writing. Also done that for Skyline. Um, and then I can help you design curriculum. That's about as much as I can do. If there's beyond that, then I can help you find other people. And to meet or talk with me, I'll put my email in the chat. Is that okay if I do that?
Yes.
I can only do one thing at a time here, so let me type. I'll be right back. j@smcc.edu. That's how you can reach me. And I'm happy to offer you whatever I can offer you. Does that answer your question?
I think so. He said thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. I don't see any more questions in Q&A or chat. Audience, if you have question, please put it in Q&A. It helps me um, go through them in order. Okay, so let's see. So while we wait for questions from the audience, let me ask my next question. Can you give us more detail about the ASE certification process? How long does it take to earn it?
So the ASE is not a certificate like a
Oh,
class certificate. It's a
mhm.
test.
Is a test.
So anybody can register for the tests. You can take them at a testing center. The closest testing center to Skyline is at Bay Hill Shopping Center area, but they have them everywhere. You can also take the test online at home, which is quite a trial to get set up for that, but it is an option. The tests are around 55 to 65 questions for your first test, and then you have to retest every 5 years, recertify every 5 years. There are, I think, 10 tests in the automotive technology series through ASE. So A1 through A8 are all the different subjects. So A1 is engine repair. That's one of the classes I teach. A6 is electrical. I think A2 and A3 are automotive, what do you call it? Automatic transmissions and manual transmissions, and on like that. So you can take whatever subject you wish. You can take, I believe, up to 3 tests per testing session. And I think you get 4 hours for a test session. So as many tests as you can take in that 4 hour time frame, you can get certificates. The nice thing about these days is when I was taking my ASE test, you had to wait to be notified by mail. Now you can find out immediately before you leave the test center whether you passed, and you have to have a 70% pass rate to get your certification in that subject.
Thank you so much. Um, are there any specific areas in automotive technology that are growing or in high demand right now?
The people that can fix cars are always in high demand, especially now. But of course, everybody knows electric cars are coming. I think it's, what is it, 2050? All cars sold in the US need to be electric. Don't quote me on that, but we're headed that way. But having said that, the gasoline engine cars are not going away anytime soon. So you can focus on electric vehicles if you want to, and just learn that and just focus on that. You'll still be able to work in the future. But if you know both gasoline, hybrid, electrical, you'll always be in demand any country you want to go to. Everybody drives pretty much.
Okay, got it. What are the most common challenges that an automotive technician faces, and how would you overcome them?
Technology, I don't know. I mean, there's always a challenge with diagnosing the repair. You have to be able to know how the systems work when they work. Then you have to know how to isolate parts of the system to test it. Then you have to figure out which part of this system is not working. And that can be very challenging, especially with cars with computers on them, because the computer can think for itself and it can change things and not tell you. Um, the check engine light that comes on the dash when tells you the driver when they have a problem. A lot of people think that that light coming on will give you a code that tells you what's wrong with the car. It does not. It only tells you what's wrong with the emissions system. Emissions equipment, fuel, and air system. That's primarily what the check engine light is all about. Um, so I'm sorry, I got distracted there. What question was I answering?
I want to know which area, which specific
Oh,
area in
yes,
automotive technology it's growing that
is
will
growing.
find more
Okay.
job. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely electric,
Electric.
hybrid, of course, but you can't get away from gasoline engines, not anytime soon.
Mhm. Got it. Okay. Question from the audience. I have heard that higher end car dealers, for example, Porsche, Lamborghini, pay their mechanics over 200,000 a year. Is this true?
It's possible. It's definitely not your entry level wage, that's for sure. But yeah, the more expensive the car, the more technology is on it, and the more you have to know before you can work on that car. So I am assuming that they are paying their highly experienced, very talented technicians a lot of money. They're starting out at the same wage level as everyone else, pretty much, because they're all competing for the same job pool.
Got it. Okay. I know there are bicycle shops that have open shop hours where you can bring in your bike, use their tools to do your own repairs. Is there anything like that for automotive, like open shops that you know of?
I have heard of such a thing. I don't know where they are. If you want to work on your own car at Skyline, you're definitely welcome to, but you need to be working on whatever the thing is you're learning in class. Um, that class that I took when I first started was a work on your own car opportunity. But I don't know if we're going to offer that class anytime soon. So the answer is yes and no. Yes, I know they exist. No, I don't know where they are. But yes, you can do it at Skyline, provided you're doing the work that you're doing in class.
Mm. Julia, I know that you taught a weekend automotive classes for women. Can you tell us more about that class?
Absolutely. So when I was a student at school. I'd been in class for about a year. I'd taken about 2 semesters. And I figured at that point, I know enough to offer a basics class. And I also knew from my experience being the only woman in the entire department how intimidating it is to go to an automotive class. And the college had always said, our classes are open for everyone. We don't discriminate, et cetera, et cetera. But when you're the only woman in the class, that it can be very uncomfortable. And I know that women won't speak up because they feel like everybody else knows more than them, again, which is intimidating. So they don't really get the experience that they're supposed to get from the classes. So I designed my own class. It's just the basics. It's just for people who want to know more about their own car. It's not for to prepare somebody for the industry. But you could do that if you wanted to take more classes after that. By all means, it would help you take those classes as well. So the class is 4 class meetings. It's just a short, I used to do it on the weekends. So Saturday, Sunday morning, one weekend, and then the following weekend, Saturday, Sunday morning. We'd get out, start at 9, probably get out about 1. And I would teach the basics of the systems that you, the car owner, need to know about. So, we didn't get really deep into suspensions, for example, but I would talk about shock absorbers and tires and how to know when you need to replace your tires, how to do a tire inspection, that sort of thing. Um, uh, Tell them about how the engine works, not how every engine works, just the basics and that sort of thing. And then, so that was on Saturday, I would lecture. And then on Sunday, we would be in the shop. So everybody would bring their own car. I would teach them the first day how to do a safety inspection. And then subsequent days, I would teach them how to take their wheels off and put them on correctly, do services, oil change, coolant change, that sort of thing. And then at the end there, we would have a day for the things that we hadn't covered. If you want me to show you how to put your bulbs in your headlights or put on a shock absorber or that sort of thing, then we would have time to do that as well. And that was how that class went. And it was a huge success.
It's wonderful. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you.
Question from the audience. Uh, I completed 1 year as an intern at Tesla and graduated from Evergreen Valley College as a certified full service EV tech
Wow.
for CEU credits. Not
Okay.
sure what CEU. The vehicles are autonomous vehicles with modern uh, board computer control systems,
Mm-hmm.
low and high voltage. I
Mm.
started at City College of San Francisco with the auto body collision because competition in this new field of electric vehicles and electric stations for refuel or re-energize. What advice would you give to a learning technician for a gas vehicle?
Well, I'm sure you figured out that the technology that you learn about with electric vehicles is not transferable directly to gasoline engines. So, basically saying if you do an internship for Tesla, that does not prepare you for a dealership job working on gasoline engines. Um, but as a teacher, I'm going to recommend taking classes at any of the community colleges. And that's where you're going to get the basic information you need to get a job in a repair shop.
Okay. Um, How do you manage customer relationship, especially when dealing with challenging situation or difficult customers?
That's another excellent question. So, as I mentioned earlier, not every shop will let the technician talk to the customers. In fact, most shops, technicians and customers are separate, and you both go through the service writer. Some shops will, though, let you talk to the customer to discuss what you found and what your recommendations are. But for the most part, the service writer is going to take your inspection results, your test results, whatever, relay them to the customer, and then get their approval, relay your recommendations, and that sort of thing, and then sell them the work, basically. Um, if you have to deal with customers, the best thing you could do for yourself and the customer is understand why things need to be done. And a lot of technicians don't bother with this step. They want to get their hands on, they want to take parts off and put them on, but they don't necessarily want to read about how things work or, sit in a class and listen to me talk to them and with a PowerPoint and that sort of thing. But that's essential, especially if you want to be successful in this job. You can imagine if you went into a shop and the technician was explaining what's wrong with your car in a way that you don't understand, and then says you need like a $3,000 repair. You might think, my car runs fine. Why do I need this $3,000 repair? If you don't understand what they're talking about, you're not going to give them $3,000 for the repair. But if that technician can explain it in a way that you do understand, then you're much more likely to have them do the work. You feel like you trust them better. You understand what's going on. If they took the time to explain it to you in a way that you do understand, then that's going to give you a much better feeling about that shop. So that's my recommendation. Learn why things need to be done and how things should work, and learn how to explain them in a simple manner.
Thank you so much, Julia. How important is it for a automotive technician to stay current with new technologies? What resources do you recommend for continuous learning?
Another excellent question. When I was a student, I had heard from one of my teachers that in the 60s, back when cars were just very simple, strictly mechanical, no computer, no electrical, a technician would read about 200,000 pages in resource materials. These days, cars are much more complex. There's many more manufacturers. There's so many more different ways of doing the same thing. And that doesn't even factor in hybrid or electric vehicles. So a regular old repair tech these days is going to read over 1 million pages of resources. So you can't know everything. Even technicians who pretend to know everything don't know everything. What you do need to know is how to find that information. So there are professional resources. One of them is called All Data, and it's a subscription database that all the manufacturers put their repair information in, so that anybody working in a shop, or we have it at school, you can get the repair information, parts locations, part numbers, how long it would take to do the job, the step-by-step instructions, diagnosis information. All that stuff is in. All Data is one brand and Mitchell One is another one. Same material, same information, two different subscription services. You can also get third-party repair information. So you may have heard of like Chilton's Manual or Haynes Manuals. So those are publishers that put together repair information, not necessarily from the manufacturer. So, it could go either way on the Haynes manuals. They're inexpensive. They're easy to access. You can buy, a book online, or you could download it online. But it's not from the manufacturer. If you want the real information, you gotta pay for it. Um, then there's the dealers, the manufacturer sites have their own information that they'll put out, and that's the information that they give to their own mechanics, their own technicians. So you can get a limited subscription for those, like you can pay for 72-hour subscription to a Ford site, download all the information you need for whatever repair you're doing, and then, that's it. Um, most All Data and Mitchell One are not for your average, person working on their own car. It's about $1,200 a year, I believe, is the subscription price. Um, so you would be either working with the third party information or basically renting access to the manufacturer's, ow, bit my own tongue, technology information online.
I want to mention that the library actually subscribe to all data, but it's only accessible from the main library. You have to come to the main and use our public computer to access all data. We don't have children, but we have auto repair source. I think it is an AppScope product. And for auto repair source, you can access it from home. You can just use your computer, get onto the library website and access auto repair source from home remotely.
That is a really amazing resource that you all have right there.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it. I've saved myself many, many terrible experiences by looking up a repair first.
Okay, I have one last question for you, Julia.
Mhm.
What skills do you think are essential for someone to succeed in the automotive field, aside from technical knowledge?
Aside from that, at least basic knowledge in sciences like mechanical principles, physics, that sort of thing. It's not required. I certainly had no science background when I started, but it is definitely helpful. Um, for repair technology, your math level only needs to be add, subtract, decimals, fractions. That's about as far as you're going to go with math. Um, and then if you like to read, that is really helpful because, as I said, you're going to be doing a lot of reading and being able to understand instructions. A lot of people don't, they don't. There's no grasp of the instructions. But if you can read instructions, understand what they mean for you to do, then you'll be able to do them.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Julia. And thank you for sharing your expertise and giving us such valuable insight into the automotive industry. We're really, really grateful for the time that you have taken to guide us through the career opportunities and challenges in this dynamic field. And I also want to thank our audience for your participation. I hope you all find this session informative and inspiring as you consider your own path in automotive industry. We really appreciate your participation and we look forward to seeing you at future events. I'll be sending out an evaluation survey along with Julia's slide deck and a link to today's recording. Your feedback is very important to us, so please take a moment to share your thought to help us improve our future programming. Thank you once again, everyone. Wishing you all a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you,
Thank you
Julia.
for having me.
Thank you. Bye bye
Bye bye.
now.